17 seconds before. One more question.
Jesus. We had a very long intro.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
For one thing is I'd add to the remark about needing to just find genius is you need to understand when you're lucky. You know, and I think that, to use a phrase that's now almost a decade old, I think that advertising, in a sense, has an innovator's dilemma, right? Because that the whole structure of the way it is and the way that people are used to using advertisers is based on ROI, is based on all these things that they need measured, and yet you need to be able to let people go off and do things in a way that may be, again, as I'm saying, not so much quantitatively results-driven, but allow you to find out if you can get lucky. I mean, you know, not every shot's going to fall in the basket, but if you get a good shot, you sort of run the offense, right?
You have to take a lot of shots to get a good shot.
Well, you have your market taking the shots for you, though.
But you have to let them do it, or you have to be smart enough to facilitate that so that if you do get lucky.
Okay, so if you were walking into one of the major agencies, or you were walking on the other side, on the client side, to a traditional client, you know, what would you say to them? Would you just say, you know, how do you say, F you in the garment business, trust me? Would you say, trust me, give me 5% of your campaign, and let's just go experiment with this 5%, because if you don't, you're going to get tasked by somebody else?
I mean, I think as a practical matter, that's what it boils down to until the metrics are established. But I think over time, it will be that people are going to allocate a segment of their budget that's done the same way that brand marketing is done. It's hard to quantify, but it's there, and you know you need to build that sort of sense of identity around your product.
And good marketers are always going to have that 5%
The budget to put those things.
Well, 5% is nothing. I mean, the reality is, you know, most advertisers are typically spending 80% of their money on TV. You know, and then X number said down to 2% or 1% on PR and yada yada yada. The P&G, Unilever, Microsoft brands that have actually been engaged in heavy-duty, really expensive research on measuring the impact of cross-disciplinary communication are now spending significantly less on TV because they know the impact isn't there, and they need to have a much better balance and a much different kind of mix in their overall spend than they've traditionally had. And I think that's what we're going to see more and more of, because Unilever doesn't do these studies with every brand every week, but they know it works. So they trust the data that they got after spending all that money once, and now I think you're going to start to see that shift.
The journalist Dan Gilmore, who's now a public citizen journalist of some sort, said that the turning point for him was recognizing that his readers know more than he does. So I would say, go forth and be interesting, except you're probably, the company, especially, the marketers, are probably incapable of being interesting anymore. The most interesting people in your company are your customers. It's your market.
It's not their fault that they're not interesting. There are more of them. There are more people out there. If you can have a way of aggregating, sifting.
Message control does make people boring.
Right.
But, so it's a little bit.
Though sometimes you're putting Steve Jobs, Mark, is your president. I want to raise one more thing. I want to get out here. One more thing. First is advertising versus PR. So you've got this world, you've got social world, you've got blogs, you've got videos on YouTube, you've got all this stuff now. It's one matter to try to approach from a PR perspective and say, I will influence what you're saying. It's another matter to say, I'll respect you as a medium and move dollars over to advertising and advertise on blogs and advertise on YouTube.
I don't think it's advertising versus PR versus promotion versus anything. I think it's conversation versus messaging. And I think that we're shifting our company into a conversation-based model. That's where we see things moving.
But I'll argue, though, that there's a chance to support this new world if advertising dollars are there, and it also it's a very clear ethical statement. This is an ad, you know what relationship is, versus I'll pick up again paper post, which is I'm not really sure what the relationship is.
That's a pretty. This is an open-ended question, but if I was sitting down with your agency and your client together, what I'd suggest, first of all, I'd have to know what the product and the category and the competition is all about before you make any recommendations, because that's just good common sense, planning. And then I'd sit down. It might be launching a specific portal about travel. It might be this. It might be that. There's a whole bunch of arrows in this quiver, and you have to decide: is this category moving in that direction, and can I align with this particular activity, marketing activity? Does it make sense? And I have to be willing to give up control, which is what the major obstruction right now is. People aren't willing to give up control. And the future of marketeers, by the way. Think of it this way: you know what's happening in terms of media habits. You know where the kids are. If you have kids, I mean, they're not watching television. So if this is correct, that 70% of the marketing dollars are still going to television, I think that's probably a little bit high. Then the future of your customers, they're all going to be geriatrics. It's going to be like the Cadillac business, you know? It's going to be a non-business. You're not going to be able to sell. Because
It is
your market
market
leader.
Yeah.
Have any of the, I don't know if it's on,
Just-
have any of these new stars, these new creatives that have come out of YouTube or whatever, has anyone noticed any of them trying to take a product or take an idea, take a customized shoe that they made on Nike's custom shoes, that, you know, anything where they've tried to become a marketer, just utilizing their natural skill at creating?
Rocket Boom, the blog, when it sold its first ads, an auction was on eBay for the haughty price that they got of $40,000. Part of their requirement was that they would make the ad. And I talked to friends of mine at a certain Chicago ad agency. I said, "You guys should win this. You should win this auction. You should go do it." And my friend said, "Yeah, we should." Chickened out. Absolutely chickened out. Because what was the killer? Oh, we got to control the message. You got to control it, right? And so some guy who makes like ATMs got the first one, and somebody else got it, and it works. You know, it was fine. It absolutely works. Why not try it? What's the real risk? What's the real danger? Amanda Condon was going to be pretty with your product and cool and fun, but no, I think that's part of the fear of it. It's all about control. It's all about that. I think that when you start seeing people succeed at this, others will come along and want the same thing too.
But I do think that if you look, and I'm sure there are blog examples that we can point to, but MySpace has created a lot of businesses. Both bands that have become hot, and they've gone from zero in garage to indie to having contracts and then going on tour. A guy whose video were spotted on MySpace and on YouTube got a deal with MTV, a development deal with MTV. So people are turning their newfound fame and notoriety into real equity and wealth. But it's just on a different scale than in a big company.
But they've not tried to associate with the product. That's just them finding a way to build
some
their...
of them have. I mean, I think that you read somewhere Tila Tequila's got her own line of something or other. She sort of created her own brand out of that right now. There's several people that have over 1 million friends on MySpace that have sort of turned that fame into their own business.
On blog ads, people make a whole business out of arbitraging the news into T-shirts. Right? Some news will happen, and they'll create a T-shirt on Cafe Press, and then just put it up on blogs and blog ads, and they end up making more money on the T-shirts. What about Etsy too? Is that an example?
Yeah, I think, well, Etsy is certainly like it's a crafts community. And so when you see it, like, I think the crafts community is like a subgenre of like the larger opportunity. Like the fact that manufacturing costs are falling so dramatically, you have many people who are making products for all sorts of niches. I mean, there are about 60 million SKUs on the market today. So there's something out there for everybody. And like people have to, most of these things are going to be brand driven, not feature driven. And so they have to figure out how to to build some buzz or to associate with an identity that's resonant in the blogosphere in some way.
I think we're talking about two different things here. There's a naturally occurring buzz, and if you're an organization that's set up to deal with it properly, you can, whether it's bad or good. And then the harder job, which I think is manufacturing, clients that want you to manufacture buzz, which is a much more difficult proposition and probably not possible. So it's really, and with
why is it so hot in the industry? Because it is, right? I think you're absolutely right.
It sounds like free marketing.
Because the other stuff is working.
I actually do think you can manufacture buzz. I mean, look at the way people like market nightclubs. You look at like the outdoor sports industry. Like that's all about manufacturing buzz. It's like this pair of board shorts is no better than that pair of board shorts, but because it's made by like the fashionable brand, all the surfers are going to buy that. Yeah, well, it's not even ESPN. It's really like like getting out there and getting the key influencers to get behind your product.
Maybe it's semantics, but it's really creating the environment where buzz can occur.
That's true.
You can't build the buzz really. You can have
You can't do it in a vacuum.
Your shorts fall apart.
Right.
Still won't be buzz. Or there may be.